Welcome to today's TLR Now livecast. TLR Now is a coaching, mentoring, and training service based out of India with chapters in Sri Lanka, Bhutan, the Middle East, and coming to a market near you soon. My name is John Godoy. I'm a life performance coach, and I'll be your host today. I'll be interviewing counseling psychologist Nidhi Sharma today on the topic, the very, very important topic of mental health. And so let's get things started. Nidhi, may I ask you, can you tell us a little, hello, hi. Can you tell us a little bit about your professional background and a little bit about how you got into mental health and counseling and psychology and all that?
Sure. First of all, I'm really, I wanted to thank TLR now to bring me back and, on the platform. And as far as my background is concerned, my graduation is actually in marketing. I did an honors in marketing. However, I got into advertising. To come directly to the question that you're asking me, I have a master's in psychology. I have a certification in hypnotherapy. I have certification in neuro-linguistic programming as well. I have just gotten a certification in positive psychology, which is very, very close to my heart. I really resonate with that. How I got into that, John, is a story that I will have to narrate to you. Do you have time to hear it?
I'm sure the audience and I would love to hear it, Nidhi. So how did you get into
Sure.
this career move into psychology?
I wouldn't say that I had this very deliberate path in front of me when I decided to. I kind of have taken steps and steps and steps, and it has led me, one thing has led me into another. However, how the journey started was that though I've never been diagnosed, but with my now understanding of psychology, I understand that I have what is called GAD, anxiety disorder. Um, I suffered with severe anxiety disorder for almost 5, 6 years. My parents are doctors, and I'm talking almost 15 years ago, 16 years ago. I had a lot of trouble sleeping, and I start to have, I used to start palpitating, I had started blacking out, etc. And um, after a lot of I went to doctors. That was the most logical step to take at that point in time, because I really couldn't understand what was happening to me. So my parents got me for a checkup. And interestingly, one of the things that stands out to me during that entire period is that I heard one of the doctors tell my mother a word called psychosomatic. And I heard that a couple of times. And when I got home one day, I asked my mother, though I understood what psychosomatic meant, I asked my mother, why is he saying it's psychosomatic? And I don't think my mother really had a clear answer for me. But fortunately, John, I used to, it, for a period of almost 5 years, I want you to imagine a scene where it's dead in the night. I used to live in a fairly large house, 3 people in the house, all sleeping in their own rooms, darkened house, little ambient light. There's barely any noise, silence. And I used to just keep walking like a ghost. I used to count my steps because I just couldn't sleep. If I would lie down and put my head on the pillow, I used to just get up with a start saying that I'm going to choke. I would feel the windows closing in. I would feel the doors closing in. And I would just keep walking, 1,000 steps, 2,000 steps, 6,000 steps. And this I used to do close to at least 4 nights in a week. And then in the morning, I went to work. Um, I was in advertising at that time, and it was fairly high pressured. Fortunately, my father at some point in time gave me a medicine, and he said that I would suggest that you start taking this every morning. I don't want to take the name of the medicine because I don't want anybody to take any medication without a prescription. And God bless him and God bless that medicine. It started to keep me sane. Um, and during this process is when I started to explore therapy for myself, counseling for myself. And that's how, so to speak, my exploration into the field of, mental health, counseling and therapy actually started, which led me to do my master's in psychology thereafter in counseling.
I see, Nidhi. There, it's kind of like that saying. A lot of people go into their professions or they pursue an education or learning in a certain field to cure something that they have or to deal something that they specifically want to take care of in themselves. That's very
Yeah.
interesting. It sounds like that's the path you took. So let me ask you this
Yeah.
next question. And this is a question that I'm sure, well, I kind of struggle with, and a lot of people perhaps have the same question, is what is the difference between, let's say, mental health and mental illness? What is kind of the description of both, and why is mental health so important to us right now?
Right. I'll answer that in this manner that we talk about health, physical health, right? So we want to have a healthy living. We want to have a physical health which is robust. However, we reach a point where we have a headache, or we have a stomach ache, or we have a, maybe a fever, a cold, etc., and that becomes physical illness, right? You have an illness which is on your body, which can be seen, which doctors can actually diagnose, talk about, give you a prescription, and we have no shame in going to a doctor and saying, look, this is what we are feeling. Similarly, mental health also needs to be robust. Uh, uh, we need to feel good about ourselves. We need to feel that we want to wake up and feel, take on the day. There is an energy which comes from within, which is not just the physical energy, but that mind force that you have, which contributes to the mental health. If that in any way starts to deteriorate, and it can deteriorate for various reasons, the stress being one of them, overwork is one of them, not having very healthy relationships, not being able to talk to people, etc., etc. When that aspect starts to deteriorate, is when we start slipping into very subtle things, which impact our behavior, which impact our emotions, which impact how we are connecting with our day-to-day life, and that then starts to get into the mental illness space. Of course, there is the clinical psychology and the psychiatrists who are also there, who are there to diagnose the clinical aspects. And when it becomes a depression or an ADHD or a bipolar, different kind of addictions, etc., bulimia or anorexia, etc., which are clinically diagnosed, those become mental illness, where you don't really get a fever, for which you can just take a pill and you will be okay after a few days.
Sure. Nidhi, would you say that there is, my background is in physical fitness, and there is no stigma associated with physical fitness. And there's a lot of advertising, a lot of promotion of preventative measures. Take care of your physical fitness now, so a year from now, 2 years from now, you're going to feel good, you're going to look good, all that. But it seems to me that mental health doesn't have the same kind of thinking around it. Oftentimes, mental health issues are generally not talked about, kind of like when people talk about how much money they make, it's generally not talked about.
Of course, absolutely. Nobody
And
talks about that.
why do you think that is? Is there a stigma to mental health issues, or just talking about mental health in general? And again, I should apologize. I probably like many people, kind of misuse the word. I say mental health, mental illness, and sometimes I combine them in the same thing, but I think that they're clearly different ideas.
Yeah, it's the same thing as saying a healthy life, a healthy person vis-a-vis an unhealthy person. It's the same thing. I mean, it goes hand in hand like that, so that's fine. And yes, there is a stigma. You're absolutely right. Culturally, world over, I don't think there is even one country, and you come from a country which is fairly open and is the most developed country, right? And still there are health issues. I see a lot of series where, in the series, people are asked to go to a counselor or seek therapy, and there is so much of resistance that people have. If countries as developed as yours have that stigma, imagine the countries which are developing or haven't reached that point. It's shameful. People feel as if we have failed. We are supposed to be, our IQ is given so much importance that we feel that if our mental health is not robust, somehow our IQ is failing. And I think people need to understand that IQ, which is intelligence quotient, is very different from EQ, which is your emotional quotient, emotional intelligence. And John, you know how I'm sure even in the profession that you're a performance coach yourself. You know how important emotional intelligence and emotional health hence becomes. So
Yes,
people
absolutely.
think they are failing somehow, and that's the stigma. In India, people say "pagal ho," yeah, very equivalent to that. That is that. Are you mad? I mean, you can't even deal with this. It's like the entire burden of our well-being, our emotions, and emotions which are getting instigated by other people around us, right?
Right,
We
right.
carry the burden of that, and it feels as if we have failed.
Nidhi, I want to talk a little bit about of symptoms of seeing, the what we should look for in terms of perhaps identifying maybe we're having mental health challenges ourselves or in other people. And the reason why I share this with you is, and it's kind of an extension of what you were just talking about. Even though I'm in the health and fitness field, and I feel that I'm a very positive minded person, I generally never really thought about my own mental health beyond just keep a positive mindset, stay positive. Because I was fortunate enough, I feel that like I really wasn't encountering many challenges. But then recently, given everything that's been going on with the COVID, the uncertainty, the economic and financial uncertainties, there's days where, although I feel physically healthy and physically robust, I just feel like someone's taking the wind out of my sails. I just feel like I have this massive headache, or there'll be periods of time where I can't get up off the floor, or I shouldn't say off the floor. I just have no motivation to move forward. I just want to
Yeah.
not do anything, and that's when I really started thinking about something is happening inside my head that's based on all these things that are going around me. And so, what type of symptoms would you look for that might make someone begin to think about maybe I need to speak with someone about this, or maybe I have to start looking into, wow, maybe I have to think about my mental health just as I look at my physical health?
So you kind of answered the question in your yourself when you say that I don't sometimes I don't feel like getting up. Believe me, when I there are days when I just don't want to get up. It is tough at times, especially with the negativity around. And but not just this situation. Look, the sign for mental health deterioration are very, very subtle. And we need to be in tune with our body for that, in tune with our mind for that. Um, Look, as individuals, there is mind, body, and soul that we have, right? At least I believe in that. There's mind, body, and spirit, and we need to be in tune with that. Keep an eye on all three of them, and that's the only way we can be fully functional and robust. So, if you are noticing changes that you've started snapping at somebody a little bit, maybe you don't want to talk to people. You feel that you're very tired all the time, you're not able to sleep properly, you don't get up feeling you know energetic, or you feel you get up in the morning and you still feel tired. um, your diet has changed, either you're eating too much or you're eating too less. Either ways, even physical symptoms that you may be having a bit of a blurry vision, or you get subtle headaches, or maybe your stomach doesn't feel good, the butterfly in the stomach, or things like that. These are subtle signs that are being sent to you to say, hey, look, something is not okay. Pay attention to yourself. And first and foremost, I really want to say this, John. It's okay not to feel okay. We're not winning a championship in fitness. Nobody's going to be giving us an award for it, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's okay to have down days. So if in a month that there are 2 days when you're feeling a little down, it's okay. But if it becomes a pattern, uh, every third day or fourth day, you don't feel like going to work, or you don't feel like talking to your family or friends, or you are not doing things that you really want to do, then in my opinion, you should seek help. Now, help here does not mean that you run to a therapist or a counselor or whatever. You can talk to somebody you respect. Maybe you talk to your GP and explain to them that, look, I'm feeling this way. They can help you, monitor you a little bit. And if it comes to that, then absolutely get to a counselor, get to a therapist, you know.
Nidhi, it sounds to me like you're saying that there's a difference between essentially chronic uh, mental mental challenges, I should say, or mental health
Yeah,
bouts versus chronic versus acute. And chronic is
absolutely.
that just the things that just seem to persist over time, and then acute bouts are where one morning you just don't feel like getting up, just because you don't have initiative. Do you have any
Right.
tips for the audience? Any suggestions in terms of what they can do if they do have those bouts of acute uh, anxiety or acute symptoms of what seem to be lack of motivation that are going on in here? And I don't even know the right words to describe it, but it just seems like it's going on
Right.
in here.
So, yeah, let me help you out there. So, acute is when it is, chronic is when it's going on for a period of time. And as the DSM 6 and would explain that, you need to have a clinical diagnosis. The symptoms need to persist for a period of time. By the time it's already become chronic and it's getting into an acute phase. Um, there is no other way in that space but to go get to a doctor and a counselor or a therapist or a healthcare, a mental health care, official to talk about it. You definitely need help. But let's step back a little bit from there and say, in this situation that we are in, that's this COVID situation, right? A lot of anxiety, a lot of uncertainty. Now, this we cannot say is a chronic issue. There would be people who might have had issues before that happened, which might get intensified in this space, and they may continue with it later because they've not sorted it, or thought about it or seeked help. But there would be those who, as the situation becomes a new normal, comes into way, they will get over it and go past. So you will have both sides. However, so in this, help me out here. What
In
was I
term,
saying?
well, the question is, you just explained what it would be like to deal with a chronic type situation.
Right. So correct, correct. So if you are into a chronic state, then absolutely you need to get to a therapist, and they would give you a lot of strategies, a lot of techniques, a lot of tools to help you deal with it. Ha- and one of the techniques that I use very often is called journaling. Uh, a lot of pent up emotions lead to a lot of sense of anxiety and uncertainty. So if you are able to sit down and pen your thoughts for maybe 5-10 minutes during in the night, and these thoughts don't have to be a novel that you're writing. They can be just simply how I felt today. It's an excellent relief, excellent relief. You know,
Yeah.
uh, please go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, yeah, I can completely agree with that. I find that something as basic as I shouldn't say as basic, as simple, as easy as journaling really kind of helps with
Oh yes,
the mental mood and the state. And it also helps first thing in the morning. I find
absolutely.
that just to start off the day really well. Nidhi, I want to actually take a question from the audience here.
Sure.
So we're going to take a little bit of a segue. So if anybody has any questions, please feel free to fill it in the box, and we'll do our best to get to the questions. I'm going to read the question verbatim, and it goes like this. Hi, people casually describe their mood as being depressed when this is a
Oh yes,
serious mental condition. What are the
absolutely.
indicators of depression as opposed to the common momentary sadness?
Right. Um, and I can see on my screen that that's Jasmine asking that question.
Oh,
So,
perfect.
so thanks, Jas, for asking such a wonderful question. Actually, honestly speaking, when you feel low and sad, it does feel like you are depressed, and we very casually use it. When you are actually getting into depression, uh, even the simplest thing as brushing your teeth can look like a huge chore. You find no joy in anything. Uh, Changing your clothes becomes I am at loss of words. It's that deep, right?
Sure.
Uh, you start to just cuddle up in your bed, and people sleep for hours. People don't talk to anybody. They don't want to eat. They don't want to drink. They don't want to change clothes. They don't want to go anywhere. There's a lot of people can have a lot of crying. A lot of, they can even have anger outbursts. They cut off from people. Now, different people will have different kind of symptoms, but overall, if these kind of symptoms, especially when you're getting into, people talk very negatively, they seem to see only the negative aspect of everything, dooms kind of, sayers kind of attitude. If you start seeing in people you care about, it's time to um, you know pay attention. On a
Interesting.
day-to-day basis, it's very, very normal to have a day where you feel sad, or you've heard something that doesn't feel right. Like, I really felt like crying when I saw that elephant incident that has happened in our country recently. One pregnant elephant has been killed, and I really felt very sad after that. And I felt, what is the point of living in this world? That's normal for all of us to have. It's how quickly you get up and go. If it
Sure.
persists, yeah. If it persists, then there is a problem. There's a problem.
Nidhi, let me ask you, there's one thing to be able to self-identify, right? You start looking at yourself day to day, you might be able to detect the difference between a symptom versus something that seems to persist. Let's say that you have family members or friends who you start to notice having certain patterns. And let's say that you do think, well, maybe this is something a little bit more than a little sadness. How do you approach them? How do you approach, or do you even approach the subject with them? Any suggestions on that?
Yeah. Well, you have to approach them if you care for them. Now, how you approach them becomes the most important aspect. Now,
Yeah.
John, if I came to you and I said, let's take people who come to you for, in the physical space. If you come and tell me, hey, you know what, you're fat, and why don't you start running? Really?
Hmm.
You've already put the defenses up, right?
Yes.
If you see an unhealthy person in that sense and you tell them that eat right, that person already knows it, and you're just coming in, right? So the words that you're going to use with the person whom you're noticing that there is a challenge is extremely essential. Our words have huge power. uh, I would suggest, ask them that, I've been noticing that you've not been eating very well for a few days. um, what's happening? I've seen you not connecting with your friends, you're not going out, we don't read anymore, we don't watch a movie anymore. What's going on with you? I noticed that, you're coming late from work often, and you seem to be a little stressed. You notice the words? It's all about the other person, not going to the person and saying, you've been coming late from work all this while, and you're not even eating properly. What's going
Sure.
on with you?
Right. And
If I was the person, I'll say, buzz off. I have a lot of work and in the office, and so the words become very, very important. The empathy and the compassion,
sure.
making me feel validated at that point in time that my emotions matter, no matter what. Nothing is silly, nothing is stupid, nothing is, extraordinary or ordinary. I feel it, so it is.
Interesting.
By your telling me don't feel this way, I'm not going to stop not feeling it, right? I'm already
Right.
feeling it. So,
I'd like to get your perspective from this angle. A lot of our listeners are going to be employers, and they're going to have staff. that are going through a lot of what we're going through, and maybe their only interaction with them is through video conference, but maybe some of them are meeting them because they're essential workers and they're still working.
Right.
And I imagine that they have to be a little bit more cautious about how they approach the subject, but at the same time, there's no reason why people who are having all these challenges, it's not going to affect them at work, and that will affect everybody around the work. Do you have any
Absolutely.
suggestions on how an employer might approach the subject, and also how definitely not to approach the subject?
Well, it's actually a double-edged sword, I think, John, because on one side, an employer is not really getting into your personal space, and yet, we spend 60-70% of our waking hour, maybe not right now physically at work, but at work, or doing things for the profession or the career that we are in. I think employers need to take a little bit of responsibility, because you know what? The fact is that I mean, there's enough and more study to suggest that people who are mentally robust, emotionally fit, are more productive, more efficient. They have better relationships, better interpersonal skills, better critical thinking, and decision making powers. It's proven. Well, if all of that is needed for work, then don't you think it just it just makes sense to take interest in the mental health of the person?
Sure.
So employers can have, counselors on call through an EAP program, which is the employees assistance program, which incidentally we also offer. Who can, there can be counselors who can be available to you in various situations. It doesn't have to be a work related situation that's bothering you.
It's interesting.
You know,
Go ahead.
no, go ahead, please. Yeah.
I was going to say, I used to run a corporate wellness program here in Chicago, and employers would pay for health-related interventions. And I can imagine that an extension of that would definitely be some sort of mental health-related intervention or services, as you said, kind of like counseling or therapy. So let's say that an employer is able, or not even just an employer, but let's say an employer is able to connect with one of their people, and then they find out that they need some counseling or some therapy. Together they come up with that. How does counseling and therapy work? How does that help an individual?
Look, a therapist and a counselor is going to be talking to you about the deeper emotions that are bothering you. There are triggers that we all have which start to get to us, which start to create negative thinking patterns, negative emotions in us, which eventually start manifesting in physical aspects. So a counselor, a therapist and a counselor do have a different kind of a role, though they overlap. A therapist also has to counsel, but a counselor, if not trained in a particular therapy, may not use a psychotherapy or a behavior therapy or any of those different types of therapies that are used to deal with, mental challenges that people have. How it helps primarily is that we look we are a presentation of the experiences that we have. Anything that I'm experiencing, I'm interpreting cognitively in my mind. That's where the things go wrong. Or I shouldn't say go wrong, that's not the right word. That's where the things start becoming different. Now if there is if you and I witness the same thing, both of us are going to, maybe we might be 50% on it together, but 50% or approximately we would see differently. We would tell different story because our perspectives are different, right? That's the interpretation that is happening cognitively in our mind. So if I am going to interpret things in a different way, a counselor and a therapist's role is one to help make peace with the past that has happened. There are a lot of trauma that people go through, or they interpret it as trauma. Help make sense of it. Secondly, help deal with that interpretation in a different way. To give you an example, A counselor or a therapist may ask you a question like, if you're saying that, my mother doesn't love me, and if I ask you a question, okay, so how do you know that? And you say, oh, but yesterday I came and she didn't even bother to give me a cup of tea. Fine. Absolutely right. She didn't give you a cup of tea, and that's what she was supposed to do. And that's the interpretation of maybe love. Now, I may ask you that, okay, she didn't give you a cup of tea, understandable. Oh, what do you think is the reason, other than her not loving you, that she may not have given you a cup of tea? And you might tell me that, she was busy talking to my dad and she was arguing with him. Believe me, I have seen clients when they're answering questions like that. In that answer, in that moment, I can see the change in their eyes and saying, oh, maybe mom was not okay herself. And that's why. So it's not that she doesn't love me. So, a therapist and a counselor would help you understand your thought process, limiting beliefs that you may have, the negative conversation that I have in my head with myself. And then what I call, what is called the thought reframe. They can help you reframe your thought process and your behavior, enhance the connection that you may have. It takes a while to change that
Sure.
aspect, but people get around that, yes.
It's interesting. I have my own experience with psychotherapy, and I'll be
Really?
very candid. I had, being a man, and we kind of oftentimes many of us grow up in an
I
environment
didn't
that's
know you were a man, okay?
but we grow up in an environment that's very macho, and oftentimes
Right,
thinking about mental health is a sign of weakness. And
absolutely.
there was a long period of time where I wouldn't say that I was wrestling with the concept of something was really eating at me, but I just felt like this something wasn't fully right in my head. And then at some point I realized it was so stupid of me not to take care of this. And so I went to psychotherapy, and what I realized is the only thing that was blocking me from seeing and getting help for my mind was my own ego. It's this fake illusion of, and especially for men, and again, I don't want to speak for everybody, but this is for
No,
myself and a group of people like me.
yeah,
We tend to
yeah.
have this ego and pride. But what I'll say is that it just completely changed my life in the sense that it just allowed me to be much more open once I got over this fake illusion of that this is just something for people who are wrestling with a challenge that they were perhaps were born with, or through horrible circumstances or circumstances in their life, this is their challenge. And so
Yeah,
I can see the real power in it. And I think the services that people
yeah,
like yourself offer are tremendously valuable. I want to jump
absolutely.
into a separate question. This is from Riwa, and she asked, do you think our mental health can affect our physical health?
Oh, yes, absolutely. Absolutely. I'm going to go a little bit, maybe a spiritual angle to this, and nobody has to buy it. It's my personal opinion. I believe that if I believe in mind, body, and spirit or soul, as you say, body is the ultimate gross form of our manifestation of that spirit and soul. And mind comes in the middle, soul, mind, and body. If the three are interconnected, tell me, how is it even possible that body is not going to feel the pain of your emotions and mental stress? Absolutely. I believe that the subtle signs that happen for any illness. Look, I have diabetes, okay? I've lived with it for almost close to about 18, 20 years. I was on insulin for close to 8 years. My father had, and many people had told me that you can never get off insulin. Touchwood, 3 years ago, I still remember when I made that call to my dad saying that, I'm no longer going to be taking my insulin medication. He says, how is that even possible? So touchwood to that. I fixed my head. Okay. I had signs, enough and more signs, John, which should have raised alarms. People get signs of mental issues, challenges, stress. Talk to any doctor. You are in the health space. Most of us have lifestyle diseases, don't we? Diabetes is a lifestyle disease. hypertension is lifestyle disease, even asthma is a lifestyle disease, all get inflamed when there is an emotional challenge. I believe that when we don't listen to our mind and our emotions, the poor body at the end of it gets so tired that it starts having headaches and loose motions and stomach cramps and migraines and everything else.
Sure.
So absolutely, absolutely, I absolutely believe that mental health impacts physical health.
I can see it from a health and fitness perspective as a cascade, in the sense that if I am suffering from some sort of mental challenge, I'm depressed, I'm just so sad about what's going on in the world around me or my financial state, that I just have no motivation to move my body, to exercise, to do anything other than sit down. And then I'm looking for anything that'll make me feel better, to kind of alleviate some of this pain that's going in through my head. So I'll eat something sweet, or I'll eat candy, or I'll just eat ice cream, and all these things, just trying to get that dose of feel good. And I can see how all these things, well, by default, if I just eat ice cream all the time to feel better, that's going to affect my health. If I'm not moving
Absolutely,
because I have no energy to move.
absolutely,
But on the inverse, I also find that when I do move my body and I do the health things, it
absolutely,
has some effect
absolutely.
here. But I would,
Absolutely, absolutely. It goes
huh,
hand in hand, John. It goes without saying. It's mind, body, and spirit together, all three together.
interesting.
Nothing is in isolation. I can't be mentally robust and, physically just not, no, 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 it's not going to happen that way.
Nidhi, I'd
I
like
mean,
to
I'm sure.
go ahead.
Sure, go ahead.
Please go ahead.
No, I was just saying that, so there are days when I don't feel very energized and mentally I'm not feeling okay. I make sure I go for a run. I run 5 days a week at least. I make sure, and I just go because I know the endorphins will fill me and make me feel better, and they do. And similarly, when I'm mentally feeling great, a physical exercise also helps. It's so much better to do it. So
So it sounds to
that's
me
all.
that in some respects, for the more chronic type signs of mental challenges, mental health, and again, I apologize if mental challenges is the wrong word to use. I just can't think of the correct word. But for that, counseling and therapy is really good, a good direction to go. And
Absolutely.
when it's acute,
Absolutely, absolutely.
when it's bouts, there's things like you can
Uh,
do, like the exercise, like you said. What else would you, the journaling? What else would you suggest if it's
well,
acute?
honestly, I would suggest for almost everybody to forget journaling if you don't want to journal. Okay, uh, every night. In our Indian custom or or culture, most people must have heard their elders tell them that in the night say a prayer. Now, it's not about the religion that they're telling you to pray, not in that sense. Basically, what they're telling you, take stock of what has happened through the day. Just calm yourself down, think about how your day went, introspect is what they're trying to tell you. Prayer is just a way of making it. So, one of the things that I suggest to people, and I've seen fantastic results with it, is that you write down and have a nice notebook. First and foremost, you must have a lovely notebook to do this on. And every night, write down three things that made you feel good. I believe, John, that all of us have loads of stuff that make us feel good in a day. Three things is nothing. And to give you an example, I just finished a session before we had our chat. And my client has just started a week ago, and she's doing that. And she's telling me, um, that really makes me feel good. I did not realize that I was having so many good days. So many good things in my day. And so three things that make you feel good today, and write down three things that you could have done better. And my words are very important here. Three things that could have made you, that you could have done better.
Interesting. So it sounds like it's a gratitude journal plus a self-improvement journal. Would that be the two? So you're writing down six things, three things that you're very grateful for, and three things that, well, you know what, could have done a little bit better. I'm going to aim to do that
Yeah,
tomorrow.
yeah, without hitting yourself on your head and saying, "Oh, you made this mistake." Oh, you. That's what we do. felt I could have been a little more patient. I could have read a little more. I could have gone for a run. Never mind. I can do it. Tomorrow
Interesting.
is another day.
So, Nidhi, I'd
That's
like to
how.
take a different direction in terms of different type of
Sure.
questioning. And this is, I think that the vast majority of people, or a large portion of people, fall into two camps. There's those who are stuck at home with family and they're dealing with that. And then there's others who are by themselves. A lot of seniors live by themselves. A lot of
Yeah.
everyday people of all ages live by themselves. And I think they're suffering with isolation and
Yeah.
loneliness. And that takes a toll on their minds
Yes.
and our heads. Do you have any
Yes.
suggestions on how we can deal with that? What we can do to kind of perhaps alleviate that and reduce the challenges we face?
Sure. So let's talk about the isolation first. You know that one of the harshest punishment in any prison sentence is that a prisoner is really scared of his isolation, right? Solitary confinement.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, we are social animals. We need to interact. Our validation, our sense of worth comes from us being with other people, knowing that we are cared, knowing that we are loved, that we are wanted, and we contribute to somebody. Uh, Lockdown or no lockdown, John, we have enough and more technology available. So people who are alone, I would suggest they make use of that facility to talk to people who are around them. Even if you can't see them physically, at least make a call. Talk to them on a video chat.
Nidhi,
Um,
sorry to interrupt you.
Sorry, go
Could
ahead,
you?
please.
I think that was a very important point, but there was some technical difficulties, so I don't think everyone got to hear
Oh,
what you said. Can you say that again? About
okay.
go ahead.
Yeah, I was saying that solitary is the biggest punishment that we can have because we are social animals, and we need to have that connect and a face-to-face connect. Okay, not just a call, a video connect where I can see your face, I can see your smile. I know that when you're looking at me, you feel the love for me, you feel affection for me. I'm wanted, I'm cared for. So people who are living alone of all ages, and I do have a couple of friends who are living alone. I really suggest to them that make that effort to make a video call, set up time to have a Zoom call with somebody if you're confined. And senior citizens also who are stuck at home, look, there are lots of voluntary services which are helping people. Reach out to them. Somebody can definitely come and meet you, or there are a lot of engagement nowadays. I've seen that there is online, people are playing bingo and housey and things like that. Participate in that. Things are opening up. You can go out for a little walk, so that can be helpful. I don't really have a solution to them living alone, other than getting involved with the community and the space they're in and contributing. That's the only way you can feel valued and also go on. Coming to people living together, that's another ball game, my friend.
Do tell. Do tell.
Oh my God. I don't think children know how to live with parents. Parents know how to live with children. Husbands know how to live with wives. Wives know how to live with children. I don't think any of us know how to live with each other. It was all very well that we got up in the morning and one of us left and went into their space. The other ones went to another space, to school or wherever. And I was at home. If I was a homemaker, I had the house to myself. I was the queen of the house. And that was okay. After 8 hours, 9 hours, somebody came, and 6 hours, somebody came, and all of that. Everybody had their space. Everybody had time to breathe. We didn't really have to deal with the day-to-day dynamics. But today, we have to deal with day-to-day dynamics of each and every one of us.
Mm.
Children don't get respite because now the mother is sitting there, the father is also sitting there all the time, at least for 3-4 hours that they went to school, or 5 hours they went to school. They had that peace of mind. Nobody, they had their own individual space. Same thing with husbands, same things with wives or spouses and brothers, sisters, all of that. I would seriously suggest that everybody should find time to be by themselves, even if you're living in a confined space. Um, maybe get up a little early in the morning, respect the other person when they don't want to talk, they want to be, um, have their cup of tea in peace. If your child is playing with something and doing something, let him or her be for a little while. Allow them to do what they need to do. We don't have to constantly tell each other what to do, not to do, why you're doing this and that, and you know um, why did you not make the bed, and why did you not help me, and you're perpetually on the call and you're not listening to me and yelling at the kids to study and not study and all of that. We need to find a way of being respectful and finding that space for ourselves. I
Interesting.
think that is extremely important to maintain sanity.
So find some space,
Violent,
right? Find some
absolutely,
space to get some quiet time. Sure.
absolutely, absolutely,
You bring up an
absolutely.
interesting point because a lot of the listeners and a lot of people everywhere have children, and they're concerned about the well-being, mental well-being of children. And oftentimes children don't necessarily express themselves or know how to express themselves, and they keep a lot to
Absolutely,
themselves.
especially the young ones. Yeah.
So do you have any suggestions on things that a parent can look for or to ask to just to make sure that the children essentially come out of all that we're going through as best as possible, so they don't end up having to suffer in silence, as they say?
Um, this is not just for kids, but for anybody. Talk to them. Have a meaningful conversation with them. Not just telling them it's time to study, it's time to go to bed, you have not eaten and you have thrown your toys, pick up your toys. Yes, those are part of life. I seriously suggest sit down with your kid. You have a cup of coffee, give him a glass of milk or something or a cookie, and have a conversation. Literally ask the child, so how is your day? You are alone. Do you miss your friends? What do you think you can do? Ask for, and believe me, they will come up with lots of suggestions that can make them feel better. And listen to the underlying words that they're not speaking. They may be scared. They don't know why, they're not allowed to go out. Have a story to tell them that can explain it to them. Other part is stop stressing about. I have recently heard parents. So one of my sister-in-law, she teaches maths and science to some students, and she was telling me that the parents, even though now the summer vacations have so-called started, are insisting that she continues to teach the children. And she's telling them, look, this is summer vacation, let them be. And they're saying, no, 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 they've been home all the time and they need to really pay attention and they need to be occupied. Otherwise, what will they be doing, etc. So much of screen time. On one hand, parents complain about screen time. On the other hand, you're pushing them. Let them breathe. It's okay to be bored for a little while. Boredom brings about innovation any which ways. They will find they will have make believe games that they will play with. They would come up with things that will entertain them. Maybe they will get creative. You will see the side of talent that you had never seen before.
Sure.
So
Hmm. You
talk
you
to them.
bring talk to. Is there any type
No,
of an
no.
alarm that you should look for? Any type of sign that goes, oh, this may be something that I should be concerned about, and then maybe this needs to be kind of investigated a little bit further. Maybe I need to ask someone professionally for some help about my child. Anything like that?
Yeah, if the child is complaining about headaches, if the child has started to complain about that he or she is not able to is not able to deal with so much of online work that they're doing, or they're reluctant to get onto that, at least ask what is happening.
I
Four
see.
5 hours of classes online is I think not very healthy for children. Also look out if they are not eating, if they're listless. They may be confined at home, so their energy should be coming out, right?
Hmm.
If they're getting a little too hyper, or they're under this thing, that is, all parents know a normal range. We all know that. If it's over and below, absolutely it requires a certain amount of investigation. Of course, if it's prevalent for over 10 days, 12 days, if it's a consistent thing, if the child has started to throw tantrums more than the child did before, yes, you definitely need to investigate what's happening.
I see.
Um,
Well, I'd like to, Nidhi, I'd like to bring it back to the adults, to the professionals, right? With everything that's going on, there seems to be this massive drive of productivity. If I'm not being productive, I'm kind of failing. I'm falling behind. And I wanted to kind of get your ideas and your thoughts on people's balance between rest and work, the benefits of that, and any suggestions in terms of how people can kind of approach productivity and work given everything that's going on, so they don't burn themselves out, so they don't mentally burn themselves out and have problems later down the road, 1 month, 2 months, a year.
um, First of all, it's okay not to be productive at times. There is no clock that says that every day I have to give, 80%, 90%. It's okay to have a little low. It's all right. As long as you even it out over a period of time and you are able to deliver what you need to deliver. So first of all, stop beating yourself if you did not have a great performance 2 days in a row or something. However, a certain amount of discipline to enhance productivity is good. Look, cognitively, the mind is not geared to take more than 20 minutes of um concentration. It needs a break. So, one of the good ways to enhance, to remain productive and efficient is to work with breaks. Work for 20 minutes. It's called the Pomodoro technique. It's not my technique. It's available. It's researched, studied, and the benefits are known to people. It works in work for 20 minutes and take a break for 5 minutes and do four such cycles. So that would become about 2 hours or something like, 2 hours or something, and then take a 15-20 minute break so that the mind is, gets refreshed. It has the time to process what has been going on. If you think about it, it's as a machine. If you just keep feeding it, feeding it, feeding it, when are you stopping it to let it process?
Yes.
Mind anyway cannot, there's a magic Miller number 7, which says that mind at any point in time can only deal with 7 bytes of information. So either +2 or -2, either 9 or 5. So the
Interesting.
7 piece of information it can process. And we are bombarded with God knows how much information all the time. So
I
slow
see.
down a little bit. That would really help in increasing productivity.
Good to know.
Taking breaks.
And find, and yeah, taking breaks and finding balance. As we
Yes.
as we reach essentially the end of our AMA today, I want to kind of leave you with two questions. The first one is, do you what if you were to give, let's say, a 3 to 4 point checklist of how to practice preventative mental health today, what would be those ideas? And secondly, the question would be, what resources are out there that someone could actually go to today or tomorrow to find help?
Right. I'll start with the second one first. I want people to think about what they can do for their mental health last. That's the last information is the first information processed.
Perfect.
Well, there are platforms like TLR, professionals like me available. There are organizations called Nimhans in Bangalore. There are organization called Dishti. I'm talking about India, of course. Available psychologyindia.com and all that is .org, I think. They're all there with lots and lots of counselors available. Pick up the phone, Google it, and you will be there. Of course, TLR is there, I'm there, and people like me on the platform are there. You can always reach us at any given point in time. Now, the more interesting part, how do I take care of my mental health? Um, I'm going to tell you something about an activity that is called Savers. Again, not mine, available on the internet. All you have to do is Google it. Savers, Savers. S stands for silence. Every day, at least 5 times in a day, have silence. 1 minute silence. Just 1 minute silence. All you have to do is sit in silence, close your eyes if you want to, and just take 10, 15, 20 deep breaths for 60 seconds. A is for affirmation, anything positive. Okay. Even saying a prayer is okay. So I, for example, every day say the serenity prayer. Grant me the serenity to accept things I cannot change, courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. Any affirmation, say it. SAV, visualize. Now, this is a very interesting, believe me, a very, very powerful technique. Even if you don't want to sit and visualize for not more than 2 minutes, I would say as you sit up every morning and have that affirmation in silence, set out an intent for the day. What kind of day I'm going to have? Am I going to have a productive day? Am I going to have a peaceful day? I'm looking forward to a patient day. I'm looking forward to a relaxed day. I'm looking forward to getting a lot of things done today. Set out the intent for the day. So that's visualization.
Okay.
SAVE, of course, E is exercise. If you don't want to go for a run, don't go for a run. You can just stretch out. There's loads and loads of videos available, 5 minutes breaks. And if just stretch. Just stretch your body, move your body, talk on the phone, walk and talk. The other day, I was listening to somebody's webinar when the lady was saying that, she and her sister connect by talking on the phone, walking and talking on the phone. So that's a great way to exercise.
Excellent.
SAVER, R is for reading. Now, interestingly, guys like Bill Gates and Warren Buffett and Oprah Winfrey, all of them say at least 1 hour a day you must read. Now, I don't mean that you open a book. Read something that adds value to you, not watching videos. Because when you're reading, your mind is processing, the words, and you have to think about it. Read whatever is of interest to you. And the last is scribbling, which is journaling. So savers is the mantra I tell all my clients. I follow it, and believe me, it's such a simple thing to do. It just takes maybe 10, 15 minutes of our time. And if I can't even give myself 10 minutes, 15 minutes, John, then am I really doing justice with myself? Is the question.
Sure. Well, Nidhi, thank you very much for your insightful comments and your stories and your advice today. I'm sure that I, for one, definitely learned a lot, and I'm sure that many of the people who are listening in today have learned a lot. I guess the moral of the story or the message is look after your mental health.
Yes.
Deal with acute
Absolutely.
mental health, and also seek out help if you need it.
Absolutely. No shame in asking for help. Absolutely no shame.
Excellent. Well, thanks again for your time. And that
Thank
concludes today's TLR Now Talk. For those of you listening, please tune in again next time. There'll be plenty more fantastic talks and AMAs and insightful discussions on TLR Now.
Thank you so much, John. Thank you, TLR. Take care. Stay
Bye-bye.
happy.
The National Institute of Health has a mantra: no health without mental health. Due to the stigma that often surrounds mental health, millions of people worldwide do not receive the help they need and often overlook this extremely prevalent health issue. Depression is the #1 cause of disability worldwide. Mental illness affects everyone, no matter their race, gender, culture, age, ethnicity, or sexual orientation. Symptoms include an inability to do daily tasks, severe mood swings, significant increase in drug or alcohol intake, a decrease in eating, abnormal eating or sleeping patterns. No two experiences with mental illness will be the same.